There are a lot of interesting books available about incense. I try to read every incense book I come across, although I imagine a few have escaped me over the years. On this edition of Incense Magick, I want to take a look at some of these books. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Before we get started, I want to get something out of the way. As you can see from my other videos, I am an author with 2 books about incense in print right now. It's obviously not ethical or helpful for me to offer reviews of my own books, so I won't talk about my books today. I'm interested in talking about what's good and bad in the incense publishing world, not about my own work, although you might spot a few things of mine in this video if you look closely. I won't have time to discuss all of the books that I show you today, but I've chosen a few highlights. If I made a video that discussed them all, it would be 4 hours long and it would put everyone to sleep. So I'll try to keep it brief. Now, in the description of this video, I've included a link to a page on my website with a list of the best books I'm going to talk about. It includes links to buy many of the books online if you're interested. I also want to mention that all of the books in this video that I show you are from my personal library, so the covers might not be the same as the current printings. Although I want to talk about the good, bad, and ugly, I'm going to change the order a little. So let's start with the ugly. Now, by ugly, I don't mean unattractive covers or poor quality illustrations. I mean books or booklets that weren't printed by professional publishers. Most of these were printed at a local copy shop and stapled together, but don't let that discourage you from reading them if you're able to locate copies. While not always well edited, you can sometimes find a true gem within the ugly category. You can still occasionally find an original copy of one of Louis de Clermont's incense booklets written in the 1930s. From David Aller's booklet about aloes wood to Keith Morgan's guide to making ritual incense, many wonderful little booklets are out there. Not all of them are filled with incense wisdom, but they do make an interesting read, and they often contain very creative incense recipes. It's fair to say that these titles are difficult to locate. Now, the next category I want to discuss are the books that might be pretty to look at or not, but at best really won't teach you much and at worst contain some information of dubious quality. Not that the books are all bad. Some of them might be a nice gift to give your grandmother to look pretty on her coffee table, but I wouldn't recommend spending your hard-earned money on any of these. Most of these titles are just the lightest dip into the world of incense. Some of them contain nice illustrations, so they're at least pretty to look at. There's not much more I can say about this category of incense books, so let's move on to a more beneficial category. While there aren't a lot of books written in English about the historic use of incense, some of those that are available are excellent. The book I want to focus on in this category is a real gem. Silvio Bedini was a history professor and a famed biographer who also had a passion for incense. One of the books he wrote about incense is a must-read for anyone interested in the ancient history of incense use. In The Trail of Time, Professor Bedini explores a variety of ancient techniques to use incense as a timekeeping device. It's easy for us to forget that before the advent of reliable mechanical clocks, many different techniques were used to keep time. Candles, water clocks, and other methods were all used. Professor Bedini looks at different ways that incense has been used to keep time, and also examines incense paraphernalia from different points in Asian history. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best academic book about incense that's available in English. It's more expensive than any of the other books I'll discuss in this video, so try to find a library copy if you can. If not, it's still worth the money to explore this esoteric topic. Now, the other books I've shown in this category include The Road to Ubar, which is a great adventure tale about the search for a legendary city at the heart of the ancient incense trade. And Frankincense and Myrrh is a nice little study into the origin and history of these very famous incense resins. You can see more about those books on my webpage. Again, there is a link to the page in the description of this video. Now, the next category I want to look at are books that actually teach you to make or use incense. Wylant's Book of Incense by Stephen R. Smith is the book that taught me more about rolling incense sticks and cones than any other. In a mere 14 pages, this book teaches all the basics of rolling incense at home. A lot of the book is consumed with conversion tables and pagan correspondence charts, but there are some good recipes that I used for the very first cones and sticks that I ever made. Now, I would caution you that most of the recipes in Wylance include potassium nitrate. I once went through the book and reformulated every single recipe to omit the saltpeter, so you can modify the recipes, but I definitely don't think you should ever use them as they're written. Nevertheless, Wylance is one of the most important books on my incense shelf. Another book that I really love is the Complete Incense book by Susan Fisher Rizzi. This is an older book, but it's still a great read. It's an oversized book, but it takes advantage of those large pages with great illustrations. The book is organized by geography, with the author looking at incense ingredients and recipes based on various regions. The recipes in this book are all for non-combusting incense, like loose or powder incense, but they're really rich and interesting. I think that some of the history in this book has been revised by modern research, but it's still an aromatic walk around the planet. Plus, it's a lot of fun to read. Finally, I want to mention the Book of Incense by Kyoko Morita. This is a tiny book, but it's packed with information about Japanese incense burning techniques. If you're interested in koh-do style incense burning, this is the book. The author discusses tools, traditional incense games, and includes detailed instructions for the very elaborate koh-do ceremony. If you ever burn incense pellets, fragrant woods, or loose incense on charcoal, this book is a must-read. It has clear illustrations and it's nicely written. This is one that I definitely recommend for anyone who wants to explore Asian incense burning techniques. The category of incense books that's really the largest and widest ranging topics explored in books are those based on nature-based spirituality. Now, this category is dominated by books about pagan or Wiccan incense practices, but there are other types of spirituality represented in this category. Even if you aren't a follower of these types of beliefs, there are still a lot of gems in these books. I want to call out just a few. The first has to be the Complete Book of Incense Oils and Brews by Scott Cunningham. It isn't a great book if you want to learn about how to make incense, but it does include a lot of great information about ritual uses of fragrant materials. It's a great book if you want to learn about mixing essential oils as well. This is an older cover that's been updated now, but it's still the same wonderful book. I also want to mention a book called The Scented Altar. Now, this was published in the 1990s and it is not easy to locate, but it was written by someone that I consider the greatest natural incense maker in America. It's focused on the ritual use of incense and it imparts great information. It's also written with sincerity that many pagan books lack. The author of this book is still making and selling incense, so you can enjoy scents directly from the author herself. If you happen to locate a copy, I'd grab it. Now, Thomas Kinkel's book, Incense and Incense Rituals, contains a nice look at various incense materials and how to incorporate incense into rituals and spellwork. The book includes some detailed information about aromatics that really aren't found in most incense books. Now, there is one final category of incense book that I want to mention. This is the category that qualifies as bad. Sadly, there are some books about incense and incense making that are just terrible. They sometimes even contain information copied verbatim from other authors. Now, these authors just don't have a grasp of the topic, so what they produce is comically unusable. I want to call out one of these books in particular. How to Make Incense is a perfect example of this category. Someone calling himself Gregory Branson-Trent released this self-published book that really is just a poorly organized jumble of text printed in other books. Although Branson-Trent occasionally changes a word or two, he brazenly copies from several other authors, including Scott Cunningham, along with yours truly, and he jams all of this together into an incomprehensible book. He goes from discussing how to roll incense cones into a list of recipes that are only for loose incense, or worse, recipes that are for essential oil blends. It's not just a terrible waste of time and money. It can also turn people away from incense and incense making by offering nothing but confusing information that the author himself has no clue about. Plagiarizing the work of real authors is bad enough, but discouraging the very people you want to buy your book proves that Branson-Trent is nothing but a con man. If you doubt that, you should look at the 35 other books he's published, which are also just copied and pasted together from the writing of real researchers. Thankfully, he only published one book about incense, and as soon as I posted a review of it showing his blatant plagiarization, he took the book off the market. Now here's one quick example of his copying. If you compare these two passages, the one on the left is from Cunningham's Incense, Oils, and Brews, and the one on the right is from Branson-Trent's self-published Nightmare. If you look, you can see that he has copied the text word for word from Cunningham with the occasional change of a term. He was too lazy to even do a good job plagiarizing. Well, that was a whirlwind look at some books that you can find about incense. I hope you'll check out some of the more complete lists that I've provided on my website. That's all the time we've got time for. That's a terrible sentence. That's all the time we've got time for. If you've enjoyed this video, I do hope that you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my website, theincensedragon.com. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bright blessings.